Okay, I'm just going to begin. So hi everyone, welcome to our webinar in which we will be discussing the topic of visas. So this is a basic overview of a handful of routes one could take to come into Germany and the requirements. But before I go ahead, we are recording this webinar for the purpose of uploading onto our YouTube channel and our website, such as talent at terratalent.de. So for those of you with cameras, or if you ask questions or anything like that later, just to let you know. And to also introduce myself very quickly, my name is Danica. I work here at terratalent as talent mobility consultant. I also moved here to Berlin almost 2 years ago now, so I have a bit of personal experience with the migration process, which helps. Burkhard, one of our co-founders, will be taking over once I've finished with the introduction. He's got a vast wealth of experience in visas. He worked at Berlin Partner, so he's much better to talk about this subject than I would be. So I'll introduce him in a bit once I've finished my introduction. So to talk about the webinar, this is now our second webinar from as part of our talent services that we launched about a month ago. And these talent services will be explained by Kenny, my colleague Kenny. These will be explained in more detail at the end of the webinar. So once we've finished about visas, and then we'll talk about the talent services and what we can offer to talent. And yeah, so let me move on to the agenda of the webinar. So I'll give a short introduction on terratalent, so who we are, and then I'll go on and give an introduction about Germany, so the economic and economic makeup of Germany, and then I'll introduce Burkhard, who will then talk about visa and permits in Germany. So what is the difference between them? There's basics on visas and permits. The new Chancenkarte, which is the opportunity card, which is a new development in the Immigration Act. And then students' permits, so how to come here to be a student. And then a summary at the end, and then Kenny will then go on to discuss the talent services. So terratalent, so about us. So essentially, we are trying to bridge the gap between German companies and talent pools outside of Germany. So it's important to emphasize that we are not a headhunting company. So we aim to build this bridge through creating networks. So Burkhard again, he's already been to various countries in Africa to build some of these networks. And as you can see from the slide, we have a pretty good network already. We're closely coordinating with Black in Tech Berlin, which is a diaspora Black IT talent in Berlin and beyond. We also teamed up with Collaborate in Kigali, which is also a platform for future work. And to just zoom in on one of our partners, which is the Africa Berlin Tech Network, which is a Senate-organized initiative. And this facilitates the exchange of resources, talent, and ideas between select African nations and Berlin through events and networks, which is a important thing. The next one, the slide shows we're pretty well connected across Europe. So as you can see here, it isn't only Germany that's interested in talent pools outside of Europe. So here's a few investment promotion agencies and trying to somewhat mitigate the impact of Europe's aging population through networks and bridging gaps between international talent pools and European companies. And to just talk a little bit about Germany. So here is a map of Germany with a pin in Berlin, which is the capital. And as you can see, we are Germany shares borders with 9 countries. So Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, etc., which makes it pretty attractive for investment. So also the most populous country in the European Union, with that says 23.8 million people have migration routes and 13.4 million from abroad. Germany also has a large economy. This is partly due to its export of motor vehicles and parts, chemicals, strong industrial capabilities as well, so particularly in the automotive, engineering and technology sectors. And here are just some images. So you probably already have an idea of Germany. You probably already have your perceptions of Germany already. So this is maybe beer or Mercedes, or football, music, so like the techno scene in Berlin. It could be any of these. But there's also the rich cultural heritage in Germany. So there's a lot of World Heritage sites, museums, and historical landmarks, including over 20,000 castles, which is really interesting if you're interested in that kind of thing. High quality education system. So since 2014, I think it was, most German universities introduced tuition-free education, and there are a growing number of English taught programs. But yeah, just because the tuition is free doesn't mean it isn't expensive for international students. So this will be an issue discussed later when we talk about student visas, and the issue of blocked accounts. And also a lot of the English taught courses still charge tuition fees as it is an extra service. So this is also something to consider. So a lot of the courses, and you will require a B2 in German, just so you know. Natural diversity, so more than a third of Germany is still covered in forest and woodland. Germany also has the biggest zoo in Europe, and sports and entertainment. So like I mentioned before, music, you probably maybe already heard of the techno scene in Berlin, so clubs like Berghain. Football, so you maybe already heard of Bayern Munich, for example. Dortmund, Bayer Leverkusen, and yeah, etc. And businesses in Germany. So it's pretty important to have a bit of an idea about how the industry landscape works in Germany. So you may already know some of the big names provided under the corporates heading, and they're at the top. So this is Allianz, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Siemens. And if we look at how the employee landscape is, about out of 45 million employees in Germany, about 40% of those work for these corporates. So these are the big companies. They have more than 1,000 employees. But the backbone of the German industry, however, is the SMEs, so the small to medium-sized enterprises. So from a European perspective, these are moderately sized companies with up to 1,000 employees, and they account for around 52%, 52% of Germany's entire economic output, and they employ some 14 million workers. So they're relatively unknown. So a lot of international people, when they're thinking of coming to Germany, they will apply for the big corporates like Siemens and BMW, Mercedes, Allianz. But these are super competitive. So not only are you competing with other international people, you're competing with Germans too. And it's also important to know that that the SMEs are an option to consider. So, and then the last option under 10 employees are the small companies. So these make up around the last 20% of the German workforce. So yeah, as you can see, there are a lot of different options, but it's also important to keep an open mind because some of the application can be, complicated. And to go into some of the background and why a lot of these companies are coming up now, so terratalent and a lot of the other investment promotion agencies around Europe, and why this is a conversation. So the German population is aging pretty rapidly. So there it says today, every second person in Germany is older than 45, and every fifth person is older than 66. So there it says 1/7 of the total labor force will reach retirement age in the next 15 years. So one way to sort of mitigate this issue is to attract people from abroad to fill in these gaps. So then one way, obviously, to make this a bit easier, the German government have made some of the immigration process easier, but it's also important to think to realize that even though it's been made a bit easier, there are still a lot of complications. There's still a lot of bureaucracy. There's still a lot of payment, and it still can be quite expensive. So these are the things that Burkhard will now talk about. And he's talking about visas, so I'll just pass it over to him.
Thank you very much, Danica, for making the introduction. We just switched places. Hopefully you got an idea on Germany. My name is Burkhard, one of the founders of terratalent. I worked for the city of Berlin for nearly 20 years. And a lot of my work was to welcome talent here in especially Berlin. And one of the biggest issues is always the visa and the permit question. And we would like to now give you a little bit of input on that topic. I'm not a lawyer. I would not even be allowed to give legal advice. So I always take it from a very practical view to give you some hints. The presentation will be shared, but just to let you know, when you talk or when you have a look on the Berlin immigration authorities, they have had like a handout on the immigration law, and the handout on the immigration law has 900 plus pages. So it's super complicated. It always depends on the individual case. It's sometimes that Berlin authorities might act different to authorities in Munich or at an embassy. So a lot of players involved. Nevertheless, we try to give you some overview. And if you have then further questions, I think we can try to answer that later on in perhaps one-on-one sessions. The important point is that 2 years ago, there was a new Fachkräfteeinwanderungsgesetz, Skilled Immigration Act. The immigration law was coming out of the 1950s, but 2 years ago they really made a big renewal on a lot of those details. Some of them are helpful, some of them are still complicated, but it is or it was a good direction which they had. I always would like to start with the idea of every permit has to have a purpose. So I always say this is like a coin, and there's a front page and a flip side of the coin. So, and this kind of purpose could be to do a language course, seeking a job, studying, working, founding a company. So it has to be a permit with a reason, with a purpose behind, and this is where it starts. That you know where you are, in what direction you are applying for. But sometimes people mix it up that there is a overall visa or overall permit, but it's always restricted to purpose. And to give you a negative example on that, I once had a football player here in Berlin, and this football player would like to bring his girlfriend to Berlin. And just being the girlfriend of a footballer, for example, is not a purpose in regard of immigration law. So this girl then has to either start a language course or doing studying or doing something else. So this is where it becomes what is the purpose of your relocation or coming to Germany. And a next very important point is people very often mix up different terms. And we also had a headline for our webinar, which is talking about visa. Visa normally is the status when you enter Germany. And for example, we have short-term visa and long-term visa. Short-term visa is, for example, for going for a tourist a visit to Germany, then that's like a visa. And visas are issued by embassies. Once you would like to have a long-term stay in Germany, then that is called a permit title, ein Titel. So sometimes you have to be precise when you talk about immigration law. Are we talking about the visa status, or are we talking about the permit status? I came to that back later. That we don't have to mix up those two terms when it comes for legal discussions. The new law, if you already did some research or look on that, is always that it has three pillars, and it's the skilled worker pillar, the experience pillar, and the potential pillars. And with the next slides, I'm trying to go a little bit deeper what that skilled worker pillar is. What you have to keep in mind is in Germany, especially with immigration law, we're pretty much referring to formal education. And in that sense, skilled worker or experience is always referring to a formal education. That means for skilled workers that this is pretty much for people having a university degree. This university degree has to be a formal university, which is recognized in Germany. When it comes for the law, the most important points in that skilled workers pillar are 2 points. Right now, before the new law could come into force, it was very often like a can decision. So you are applying for a permit or a visa, and somebody from the authorities can approve whether they accept the application or not. It's not an easy can, but so to say, there might be any kind of reasons why they reject it. Now, in the skilled workers pillars for the blue card, it's a must regulation. If you fulfill the requirements for the blue card, then the German authorities must give you the permit. And this is a for lawyers a big point of change from a can regulation to a must regulation, because then there is less negotiation or whatever behind. They simply have to give it. And one of the pain points before always have been, if you are applying for an IT a job here in Germany and perhaps have studied any kind of language or doing an MBA, not precisely IT studies, and then applying for an IT permit, then somebody could reject that and say, okay, your qualification is not 100% according to your job profile. This is why we think this is not worthwhile to accept it. Now they broaden that pretty much. So as long as you have a university degree and a company is saying we accept the CV and the offer and agree on a salary contract, then the authorities follow that. So these are 2 points which make it pretty much easier to apply for this kind of blue card regulations. Perhaps the headline is still EU, European blue card, though there is a kind of an alignment in European Union about the blue card scheme. But unfortunately, it's still a national-wide decision. So if you have a German blue card, that does not count anything for France or for Poland, or if you come with a blue card from Spain and then would like to move towards Germany, you can move for short time working, but in the end, you have to reapply for a German blue card, or the other way around, you have to apply for a Spanish blue card. So it's a kind of an alignment on the requirements, but it's not harmonized in Europe on the blue card, which I pretty much feel like a disadvantage. But very often states would like to be still responsible nationwide on whom they give a card or not. In the slide, you find some more details on that background. The most important point is the university degree has to be recognized, and there is like a salary threshold, which is for this year 300,000 euros as a yearly salary. This is adopted year by year, and normally it's always rising. For this time, they lowered it quite heavily. So before the new law, the threshold was something about 56,000 euros. So they lowered it down to 45,000. But within the next years, they always make like an average salary in Germany and then any kind of a percentage to that. And this is then applying for the blue card. So for this year, it's 45. It might be 46,000 next year. That is what you have to keep in mind. And when you have a little bit a deeper look on the blue card regulations, there might be like 3 different kind of blue cards. The one I talked about was the first one. We call it the big blue card. So if you are above the 30 threshold, have a university degree, then that's a must regulation. And there are some disadvantages like you can bring in your spouse. You don't have to show private accommodation in a sense of that. So that's very straightforward. I think, or we know by statistics that only part of the applicants will ever reach the salary threshold. So Germany came up with a shortage, eine sogenannte in German Mangelberuf, blaue Card. So if you are above 41,000 euros per year for 2022 for this year, then you can also get a blue card. And there is a certain definition. I have that on the next page. What is a shortage occupation? So there is an opportunity to get that. And this is also brand new with the new immigration law, an IT blue card with the same salary threshold, but this is really an innovation. You don't have to have a university degree to apply for an IT blue card. If you have a background of 3 years work experience in that field within the last 7 years, you can also apply for blue card. And the blue card is always A lot of people looking for that because you can quite easily apply for a permanent residency on base of a blue card because at least after 21 months with then a B2 German level, you can already get a permanent residency. If you don't have the B2, then it's like 33 a month. So a lot of people always apply for the blue card because it's making them easier to get the permanent one. Normally, you have to wait 5 years to get the permanent residency. If you would like to see whether your university degree is recognized, I put in the website where all international university degrees are listed, which is called ANABIN, and your university has to be marked with H plus, and your field of studies has to be mentioned. This is a point where we can also help you. From my perspective, most of the universities, international universities worldwide, are in the database. Very often they are marked with H plus. Sometimes private universities are not listed, smaller ones. But then there is also a possibility to do like the first application on that, and then they check the university in total and see whether the university might be in. But this is then a quite a longer process, takes more weeks on that, and it's a kind of an extra fee to do for that. But my experience is always that 90% or 95% of those applications I saw during my career have also mostly the H plus, so that isn't the big problem. On the next slide here, I just try to came up with some of those shortage occupations, Mangelberufe. So you see, it's a long list. Don't want to read it out all in details. In the end, it seems a little bit like it's everything. There is even, and I put in the link for the long list behind that, pharmacists, academics, IT, medical doctors. Where you also have to look is there are some protected areas, like to become a doctor. There you have to get an approval to be a doctor. That's the same for tax advisors or for some legal jobs at courts or something like that. So as long as these are open jobs, then it's easier. If you need a special approval, like becoming a doctor, then this is something you should also have in mind. Beyond the blue card, if you don't fulfill all those kind of possibilities for the blue card, there is also the opportunity to get a regular work permit. That's in the end everything between, I would say, the minimum wage and the salary threshold for the blue card, which is the 41. It is quite sure that you won't be eligible for a work permit on a minimum basis. The minimum wage in Germany is about 15 euros per hour. If you count that, I don't know what it is, or 12.40 now. It's 12.40 or 15. It's a discussion because the idea behind is if you try to attract somebody with a university degree, those people should not work on a minimum wage. There is statistics saying that if you have a degree from a German university, you start your career with something about 2,500 or 3,000 euros per month as a salary. So there is a range of a negotiation then with authorities. And the main difference between the blue card options and the regular work permit is that within the regular work permit, there is the Federal Employment Agency, the Arbeitsagentur, involved. And then they have to decide whether the salary you agree with your employer is appropriate, is like an average salary which is required. In Berlin, we very often have the discussions with the startups. Sometimes startups cannot afford to pay high wages in the beginning because they are bootstrapped or whatever that is. And then sometimes those startups are going to the Federal Employment Agency and saying, hey, guys, have a look. We can only pay whatever 2,000 euros in that regard. We are eager to raise the salary after 1 year or after 2 years, and we give some shares and things like that. So this is where the process is longer, and one more player, the Federal Employment Agency, is part of the game. So it makes it a little bit more complicated, and it's a case by case decision. So this is really, you have to look on the case, on the job profile, on the work permits, on the CV. And if that is overlapping and the negotiate with the employment agencies is good, then it can be successful in that sense. I saw that there might be some questions coming up, answering them hopefully afterwards. But let's just try to go through the slides. When it comes for the process, one of the biggest pain points in the process is if you have to apply for an appointment at an embassy. This is sometimes taking way long. I know embassies around the world where you have to wait nearly 1 year to get an appointment, which is completely crazy. German government is aware of that, and they are trying to work on some digital solutions for that. But in reality, very often the biggest first hurdle is to get an appointment at an embassy. There is a so-called fast track procedure for skilled workers, das beschleunigte Fachkräfteverfahren. I just put you like a screenshot on the left side, 7 points. So if you just look at the short description of the fast track, you see, okay, that's very German and still a lot of steps to take. But the general idea is regularly you as a private person have to apply for the permits. You have to bring in some documents from the companies. With the fast track procedure, you are giving the task to the employer. So the employer is applying on behalf of you at the immigration authorities. And then the immigration authorities, the local immigration authorities here in Germany, they are applying on behalf of the employer and of the applicant at the embassy. And then the embassy has to react within 2 weeks. So this is where it makes like a circle that the local immigration authorities are applying on behalf of the applicant in the end with the embassy to speed up the process. The employer has to pay a fee, which is like 400 euros to do so. But in several cases, it's a good turnaround to make it easier to get rid of this waiting times at the local embassies. But again, it's a case-on-case decision. Sometimes embassies are quite quick, sometimes they are not. So this is sometimes even in Berlin, you have to wait 2 weeks to apply to start the fast track. So you're losing already 2 weeks just to start the fast track. That is depending where you're applying in Germany, where the region is. In Germany, it's about then where the employer is. So if you apply for a job in Munich, then the employer in Munich would start that. If their employer is in Hamburg, then it's in Hamburg. So that's the starting point. That's about the first pillar. The second pillar is about the experience pillar, and as I explained in the beginning, we are talking about formal qualification, and in the experience pillar, we are talking mostly about those people which don't have a university degree, but a normal, what we call in Germany, an apprenticeship education, vocational training, being a plumber, electricians, so all these kind of craftsman jobs. There are some new regulations coming up to make it easier for that because when you look on the overall German economy, mostly in Germany, about, I would say, roughly about 20-25% of the workforce has a university degree. Most of the people in Germany have an apprenticeship education, which is a 3-year education between school and companies. And in that regard, there are some new regulations making that easier. What you also have to keep in mind is that where it sometimes becomes complicated is, for example, bookkeeping in Germany is an apprenticeship education. So you're doing a 3 years qualification program, then you are a bookkeeper. I know that in other countries you can study, you may do a bachelor degree on something like a bookkeeper. So sometimes the local education system and the German education system are not fitting on the same level. So sometimes you have to see, okay, I have a bachelor degree, but in Germany you would, for that job position, would not need a bachelor degree. And then you have to see whether this is going under the first pillar or under the second pillar, where the biggest fit is. It's sometimes all again about the 30 years threshold, but with the experience pillar, it's mostly about the recognition of your education, because this kind of German duale Ausbildung apprenticeship program is not known in other countries. Then it's sometimes perhaps even easier to align a bachelor degree to a apprenticeship education here in Germany. Um, and the third one, I know that a lot of people put some hope in that. I'm not a big friend of that. The potential pillar is what is called about the Chancenkarte. So Germany, when they put up the law, they pretty much looked to Canada, and Canada, they have this kind of a point system. And now we have also this kind of point system, so you can collect, and we have it detailed later on in the chart. If you fulfill certain requirements, then you can be collecting points, and when you are above the points, then you are able to go for the Chancenkarte. The biggest problem in the Chancenkarte is that you have to show sufficient financial means to cover your living expenses, which is normally done on a blocked account, and you have to a certain extent already show some German language skills according to the point system between A1 and B2, which is, for example, if you look for the blue card, there is no German language skills required, even in the second pillar. If you have a work experience, there is no German language skills required in the Chancenkarte. This is one of those points. If you look on the financial means, you have to prove officially it's about that you have to show in a blocked account 1,027 euros per month, and you can apply for the Chancenkarte for up to 1 year. And that would mean for 12 months, and that's something like 12,000 euros, which is a lot of money. And a lot of people, I think, are not able to put that in a blocked account. Most of the German consultancies or public consultant services, they try to go towards the declaration of commitment. So that could be something from parents, relatives, or if you have a job right now that you just show, I have a work contract, and this work contract is remotely ongoing, and with the background of that work contract, I can show that I have some means where I can make my living on. But this is something where you have to be aware that Chancenkarte might be easy, but this is something you have to solve. If you don't find a job, staying here for 12 months, then you would have to leave for Germany. That would be the same if you apply for a regular job seeker visa with a university degree. You also have to show something like a blocked account. If you don't manage to find a job in those time period you are here, then it's hard to change to other purpose. Again, what I said initially, this is then this job Chancenkarte or job seeker is job seeking purpose, then to switch to a self-employment or changing to a language course is sometimes hard to do that. So might be that Chancenkarte put some pressure on you. So this is where I still would say that Chancenkarte is something which is an option, but it's easier perhaps to look for a job from outside, and once you have a work contract, then go for the second or the first pillar. Here we have the scoring system. What kind of points you have to come up. In total, you have to have more than 6 points that you are eligible for the Chancenkarte. And you see that there are different levels where you can collect points. We will come on our website also with a calculator to do so. If you have questions on that, feel free to reach out to us. And then on an individual basis, it's something where we can give you feedback. What is the best option? Is it one of the 3 pillars? In what pillars? What option is there? Because there are so many different opportunities. Yeah, to summarize that, we have the blue card. The salary thresholds have been lowered significantly, which is very good. I think it's faster. I would expect that digital services are coming into place more and more. I know that some of those authorities are already working on some solutions here in Berlin. You can apply for the blue card, for example, on a digital way. Also, some embassies I know working on projects. So might be that this is becoming better within the next month. One point which is not relevant here for us, I think pretty much for refugees, it was always this, if you're coming on an asylum seeker, now you have also the possibility to switch towards to apply for a work permit before you have been sent home, and then you have to reapply. So we call it the Spurwechsel. This is also very good. We have the point system, which I just explained, which is also pretty new and might be the option for 1 or 2. One of the big plus points is that family unification was made much more easier. It's very often that people are asking about bringing in family, parents or parents-in-law, especially when it comes for setting up a family and having small children. Childcare and things like that, that family might be easier for that. So that is also have been made much more easier. The last point I would like to step on was the student permits. If you just come here for as a student, different options for coming here to search for a student university. Or if you have been accepted just to start a visa. I know that a lot of people looking for master courses here. I think Kenny, following after me, is one of those examples. We're starting with a master study here in Germany. So quite easy options for that. It's again that you have to fulfill some criteria before that you accept that. You have the blocked account question again on that. There is also the possibility to have a declaration of commitment to go for that instead. And sometimes there are requirements according to the language, whether the university degree is already offered in English speaking or whether this is a German speaking and you have to show B2 or some other grades in that. What they made it quite easier is after you stayed here in Germany or you graduated from a university, you have the possibility to have an 18-month period where you can work everything, self-employed, being employed, being a taxi driver, whatever. So you have 18 months time to find your way into the job market. And it's quite easy to apply for the permanent residency with a German graduation from a university after that. So there are quite a lot of quite good options in that. We made an overview on requirements in total when it comes for the language requirements according to the type of visa or the type of purpose. Might be some helpful to give you some direction. Sometimes it's nevertheless important to have a deeper look on the individual case, whether this is A2, B1, or whatever the course is. That's my final slide. It's with the new Immigration Act a lot easier than before. It's still a complicated process for me working in that field now for years. I mentioned that there are 900 pages on details, on all the details. It's still too complex. A lot of players are involved. My strong recommendation is try to find really some support on that. There are free services, there are other processes. If you just look on Google, that might misdirect you in that regard because it's too complex. The process, it takes time. I don't see any very quick coming, even blue card. Everything below 4 weeks would be a miracle if that is happening that quick. So it's a longer process. And when it comes for the welcome culture, German authorities are very administrative. We are paperwork, so it's not about being interviewed or being very flexible. Sometimes people are trying to be helpful and welcoming. Sometimes they are just referring to this is Germany, and if you don't speak German and if you can't speak to me, then it's complicated. So be aware of that. Be well prepared. Then it's becoming quite easier. There are a lot of options. There is a lot of opportunities when it comes for jobs. It's worthwhile, but it's nothing where you just do a finger snip and then it's going on. That's quickly from my side. I don't see all those questions. We'll now try to see what kind of questions came in. And meanwhile, I hand it over to Kenny for going for some information on what we can offer as terratalent. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Danica and Bukat. Very interesting presentation. Like, even though I already live in Germany, for me it was also very interesting because there's so much to learn. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of potentials to really explore in Germany. And please, can you, yeah. So very and quickly, so my name is Elisha Kenny. Originally
Kenny,
from.
we can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, Kenny, I can hear you.
Okay. Maybe Danica from your end. Yeah, so my name is Elisha Kenny, and originally I'm from Nigeria. Currently I'm doing my master's in Germany, and I also work part-time with terratalent as a project manager. Before now, I lived in Cote d'Ivoire, in Tanzania for 1 year, and in Uganda for 2 years. with a background in business development, project management, and international operations. So I'm very happy to be part of terratalent for close to 1 year now. And the overall goal is basically we're trying to see how we can connect more, bridge the gap between African talent and German employers. And if you can see from the previous presentation about the whole visa and everything, Germany work culture and everything, there's a lot of opportunities and so much to learn. And because of this, we do this kind of webinars. So we recently launched our talent services, as you can see on the screen. So it could be after this webinar about visa, maybe you might need one-on-one support or consultation to really go deeper, or maybe you might even need support with the whole process. So this is where our talent services come in. So beyond just offering job strategies, application support, if maybe you want to even explore the blue card or something, we have a blue card who has been as head of talent for Berlin for years. Myself, Paul, Danica, Joshua, we can support with some of these topics. If you want to explore anything, applying for jobs in Germany, job application support, or maybe tailoring your CV to fit in the German standard, or even applying for master's or scholarship in Germany, we are happy to provide this support one-on-one. So if you scan the QR code, at the moment our server is down. So I would say you can just scan the QR code. I think this server should be back before the end of today. I could also send our LinkedIn page so that you can also connect with us on LinkedIn. So you can also reach out to us on email if you have any questions, if you want to know how you can explore these talent services. So in the long run, the overall goal is to help you secure and help you to navigate the whole German labor market. And in the coming weeks, we will also try to see how we can be doing this kind of talent recommendation. And only those who are part of our talent services, we prioritize. So if you want to see yourself maybe really, really enjoying the opportunities in Germany, one-on-one support, then I would say you can subscribe to our talent services. Of course, because it's one-on-one, it is not free, but we can assure you that even though it can cost you some little money in the short run, but always look at the long run in terms of the kind of potential this can have for your career in Germany. So I think I'll stop now and allow Bubukar to answer the questions because I think more questions might want to come in. So Bubukar, you can go next. Bubukar, are you there?
Now we'll just have a little bit of time to dedicate a bit of time to questions. Anyone? Okay, now we're turning. So if anyone has any questions, we can quickly answer them here. But Burkhard has just answered some. Do we charge any fees if this is for the talent services? Yes. So you submit an application. We have 3 different subscription services and 2 tech services. So if you have a look on the website, there's much more detail on which subscription services which services we offer. So the standard one is the €65 one-to-one consultation. So any kind of issues that you have personal anything that you want to discuss with regards to job search strategies, CV and cover letter writing, Obviously, like Burkhard said, we can't give legal advice, but we can advise on visa questions with regards to application, anything like this. For 1 hour, it's €65. We also offer a 2-year-long subscription services, and this also gives you access to other things as well. And there's the tech services, which we have with our partner, and this search your eligibility for tech work in Germany. So there are 5 different options. So if you have a look on the website talent@terratalent.de, and you'll see the breakdown of all the different services and the prices.
Now, perhaps just to add on that, especially on the visa level, it's always a one-on-one case. It's nearly impossible to give general advice because every case is different, and this is where it makes it so complicated. I don't want to go against lawyers. There are a lot of lawyers doing this kind of visa services. It's a legal service for sure. Sometimes lawyers make it too complicated. So very often, from my experience, 8 to 9 out of 10 cases are to be handled quite easy once you know where to start, and then you just follow the process, and that's easy. And then it's easy. The 1 or 2 cases which are complicated are mostly super complicated. And for me, it's like to cope with the 8 or 9 out of 10 cases, you don't need a lawyer for that because it's pretty obvious once you know where to start. For those which it becomes complicated, then you perhaps need a lawyer because those cases are then very individually and complicated. But yeah, that's our experience and doing that now for 15 years. That's always, and when it comes for the second and the third pillar, it's, to be honest, something which is new to the law, and especially with the Chancenkarte, it's just that Germany is gathering experience how it works. So I think there are now the first applications coming in. So there is no a big knowledge where people know how to do that and how to decide on tricky questions. So this is for Blue Card. Blue Card is in place now for years, so that's quite easy. For the new options, for the skilled workers and for the Chancenkarte, that might be that some people just stuck because it's new, even the authorities or the applicant. So this is just to be aware that these are new options, and it may take longer because somebody has to rethink what the process is really about. Any more questions? I try to answer some of those questions in the chat. We are sharing the presentation afterwards. I think as you are on the WhatsApp group, we can share it on that. Yeah. There's one last as a student. Yeah, this I would say the one option I explained is the IT Blue Card. So you don't have to have a full university degree. Coding school diploma is helpful. In that sense, it's really about what kind of skills you got in the coding school, and from the coding school, compared to what German companies would require, do you fulfill, or do you have the right skill set German company would ask for? then perhaps we can try to help you to apply for a job. For getting a permit, it's quite easy because for the IT blue card, you don't have to fill with the coding, and at least if you have the 3 years experience already, perhaps, then you would even get a blue card. All right.
And if there's no more questions, we're going to end it there. So thank you everyone for joining. It's been an hour now. So yeah, we will be sharing this so you can refer back to any slides. This last one, can I find courses? So yes, there are courses available at university that are taught in English, but a lot of these do charge tuition fees. And yeah, I mean, learning the German language is helpful if you do want to come here to study. Having a B2 in German is quite often the minimum requirement, depending on the course. Sometimes you will need C1. Yeah, so that's with regards to studying. But yeah, we're going to end it there now. Thank you everyone for joining, and hope you have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye bye.